I guess it is blesses. I guess it is. Ice Lightning Mage is one of the most straightforward magicians in all of Maple. They're commonly known for having a mobbing skill with a huge range, and back in the day being able to spam an ult that covered most maps. Nowadays, they have one of the best teleports in the entire game, and still mob like crazy, but surprisingly have a really cool system when it comes to their bossing, via frost stacks. None of it is really hard to grasp either, so let's just dive into explaining their skills as per usual. To start off, real quick, beginner skills I'll mention for the one thing that's here, the Link skill. Empirical Knowledge is a passive that gives you a 25% chance to inflict an enemy with a stacking buff. Each stack gives you 3% extra damage in IED, and stacks up to 3 times for a total of 9% damage and IED on said enemy. 10-second duration on the debuff, no cooldown, and you can constantly refresh it by just being in combat. Like all other Explorer Link skills, this Link stacks with the other class types, Bishop and Fire Poison Mage, for its max level of 6. Really handy Link, especially while bossing. Alright, time to get into the actual skills, starting from first job. A passive that gives attack speed and mana every time you level up, another passive for flat defense, this basic little mobbing skill that shoots an energy bolt forward, and Magic Guard, which is the basic toggle across most mage classes in Maple. Turn it on, and a portion of the damage you take is displaced and instead reduced from your mana instead of your health. Lastly, mobility skills. Teleport makes you, well, teleport in any one direction you're holding, up, down, left, or right. It can be used in the air, even on ropes and ladders, and it pairs nicely with your other mobility skill, Mana Wave. You can either click the up arrow and jump again while in the air to activate it, or bind it to its own key to simply let you fly upwards really quick. If you hold down the skill key or press and hold up after up jumping, you'll float in the air, gradually floating on down back to the ground. That floaty portion stops after about 5 seconds, and you can teleport out of either the launch or the float. Second job is where you actually become an elemental magician. See? 4 ice and lightning centric skills. Cold Beam is just a basic mobbing skill that freezes and slows enemies that get hit by it. Thunderbolt shoots lightning down all around you. And Chilling Step makes your teleport an offensive skill. Toggle it on, and every time you teleport, there's a chance you'll leave behind chunks of ice that freeze and damage enemies. 6-second duration on the ice chunks. Lastly, for the elementals at second, Freezing Crush gives critical damage every time you attack enemies with your elements. Attacking frozen enemies gives 2% crit damage per stack, and attacking frozen enemies with your lightning skills gives you 9% damage per stack. It doesn't say this on any of your skills, but you can build up to 5 total of these freeze stacks. You also get this cool magic attack party buff, meditation, and a bunch of passives for mastery, attack speed, flat stats, and MP Eater gives you a chance to restore mana with every attack you do. Third job gives all these passes for, yep, more basic expected stats you gain throughout your job ranks, crit rate and damage, extra mana, final damage, elemental decrease, which is underrated, and then also these 2 passives that are not so basic. Shatter ignores enemy defense, depending entirely on how many stacks they have on them, 2% for each stack. And Storm Magic gives you extra final damage on enemies that are debuffed in certain ways. Namely damage over time, dot, freeze, stun, darkness, or paralysis. Obviously the important one here for us is the freeze, with us being, you know, ice-based and all. These 2 new toggles are really nice. Teleport Boost simply increases your teleport range, and Teleport Mastery makes your teleport not only do damage to enemies, but also grants a chance to stun them too. So with last job's Chilling Step, you could theoretically just keep teleporting around a map to grind. Elemental Adaptation is just a fairly useful just-in-case type buff that places a permanent buff on you, protecting you against one initial debuff of some kind. Once you're debuffed to some degree, it pops a barrier that blocks additional debuffs for the next 30 seconds. It also passively gives resistances, 4-minute cooldown once it does activate. Lastly, Frost Ward shoves enemies back and does some damage. Ice Strike is your basic mobbing skill at third, attacking around you, freezing enemies and all that. And Thunder Sphere is a giant ball of lightning that follows you around for 2 minutes and attacks enemies nearby it. If you hold down and press this skill, it spawns in place for a minute, just regularly attacking enemies at like 1-second intervals. Placing the sphere down in one area weirdly enough has a 30-second cooldown for some reason. Oh, it also does increase normal enemy damage. That's useful for grinding. Fourth job has a lot of new goodies. Like, look at Maple Warrior and Hero's Will. Passive all stats and a cleanse? Whoa! Of course there's also a handful of passives, but these are all fairly different from what you'd expect from the usual job level passives. Buff Mastery increases the duration of all your buffs, as well as gives some extra magic attack and knockback resistance. Frost Clutch is an upgrade to Freezing Crush back from second job, giving some more damage for each of its stack values. And Arcane Aim gives flat IED on your attacks, with each successful attack giving you a stack increasing your damage and stacking up to 5 times. That's pretty nifty. Infinity is the defensive Explorer Mage buff, increasing your final damage by 70% when you initially cast it, and gradually increasing throughout the duration of the buff up to a cap. Remember that Buff Mastery passive? Yeah, that and all other sources of buff duration increase the duration of Infinity too, which is really nice to have out for as long as you possibly can. 3-minute cooldown. Moving on to attacks, hello, the defining skill of this entire class. Chain Lightning is pretty good. It's your main attacking skill for both grinding and bossing, has a large initial range from the first cast, and then just keeps chaining to mobs behind the first. You know, like in a chain. It goes pretty far with its mob chaining, but doesn't have too high a vertical range. Blizzard drops icicles down all around where you cast it, and gives a passive to all your attacks that have a chance to spawn icicles that hit one enemy. 45-second cooldown. Elkwines is an icy summon that just attacks enemies periodically, and passively increases your mastery. Lasts a while, and there's no cooldown. Have it out all the time. Frozen Orb is a giant ball of ice that flies horizontally forward, and slowing down with enemies it makes contact with, both damaging and slowing them like every other ice skill you have. Shocking, I know. It doesn't say it anywhere on the skill, but the orb itself stays out for about 3 to 4 seconds, and has a 5-second cooldown. Lastly, Freezing Breath is an odd skill. It's a hold down bind that's also an iframe? So firstly, it does the usual typical binds enemies it hits, but this one in specific binds them for 13 seconds, which I think makes it the second longest bind in the entire game, right behind Kana's 15-second bind. Secondly, you're invincible the entire time you hold it down, and it can be held down for up to 10 seconds. Thirdly, it also reduces the magic and weapon defense of said enemies it hits by 30% and 15% respectively. 2-minute cooldown. Hyper passives keep up the icy coolness factor rolling, starting with this lightning skill. Wait, Lightning Orb is a hold down attack that just shocks anything trapped inside of its area. It hits a bunch of times, does a bunch of damage, can be held up to 2 seconds, and at the very end, it does one final hit for even more damage. 1-minute cooldown. Epic Adventure is a nice little buff that gives 10% damage for you and all other Explorer classes in your party. 1 minute uptime, 2-minute cooldown. Lastly, Absolute Zero Aura, much like the name implies, is an ice toggle. It gives some resistances, reduces damage taken, and builds up freeze stacks up to the usual cap of 5. Your party members also get all these non-freeze stats as well when they're standing nearby you. If you hold down and press the skill, it instead places down a vortex, supplying the same defenses and freeze stacks. 30-second duration, 1-minute cooldown. On to hyper passives. Teleport Mastery has some okay upgrades, one for extra teleport damage, one for extra mobs hit, and one that increases your teleport range in all directions. Out of any of these, yeah, you'll want range mainly for all the extra vertical mobility. Keep in mind though, you can't use it unless you replace your old teleport boost toggle, since it doesn't work alongside it, and instead replaces it entirely. I figured that might be worth mentioning because I didn't even notice I wasn't using mine at all until making this video and reading everything thoroughly. Whoops. Anyways, moving on to Chain Lightning. Generally, everything here is good to get. This is your main spammable attacking skill, so Reinforce and Extra Strike you'll absolutely want above all else. Spread is really good too for grinding, as that ups the mobs you're chaining with each Chain Lightning hit from 6 to 8. Though I'd argue it's optional if you wanted to focus more on what's optimal for bossing, for whatever reason. Though there's not much else to get in favor of specifically that, other than Teleport Mastery Reinforce, which is kinda whatever. Lastly, Frozen Orb you'll absolutely want Reinforce for the extra damage. Spread, again, is okay for mobbing, but you're much better off just spending that point in Chain Lightning Spread instead. Critical Chance is just really bad. Even if you were low on critical rate and weren't quite at 100% yet, why would you up the crit chance on this of all skills? Realistically, yeah, just get Reinforce. along with these 4 other passives. Let's move on to 5th job now. Bolt Barrage is like a souped up lightning version of Frozen Orb. Click it, and a bolt of lightning keeps crashing down forward in front of you, and stops on an enemy until it depletes entirely, or fells said enemy. It spawns 8 lightning bolts, and has a 40-second cooldown at all levels. Jupiter Thunder tosses a ball of lightning forward, going into enemies and constantly shocking them either until they're defeated, or until the skill runs out after 30 shocks. It also attacks enemies nearby to the one affected enemy, and once one enemy is defeated, it keeps traveling forward to the next, either until it depletes entirely, or can't find an enemy in said trajectory before it disappears. So basically another Bolt Barrage / Frozen Orb. However, this one increases your final damage with lightning-based attacks on said affected enemies. 2-minute cooldown, going down by 3.4 seconds for every shock that wasn't used before it expired. Spirit of Snow is a big ol' placedown skill, summoning an ice goddess in an area, and periodically attacking enemies in said area. That's it really. She can also build up to 3 stacks when targeting a singular enemy, for whatever that's worth. 30-second duration, 2-minute cooldown. Ice Age is more or less a stronger version of Blizzard from 4th job. It attacks all around you, and also litters the ground in ice that is the same as your teleporting one, freezing enemies that touch it. No passive ice attack though. 1-minute cooldown. Onto the shared skills, starting with the mage ones. Mana Overload is a toggle that increases the damage of nearly all your attacks and summons, at the cost of a percentage of your mana per cast of said skills. It lasts forever, either until you run out of mana, or toggle it off. When initially toggled on, it has a 1-minute cooldown, going down to 30 seconds at max level. Ethereal Form gives you a super stance and displaces most damage you'd normally take to your health by instead being a flat amount of your mana. Slightly different from Magic Guard, and still pretty useful. Soon in a future update, Ethereal Form will instead change to be very simply just an iframe, so watch out for that in some update in a few months. 3-second duration, 1-minute cooldown. Shared Explorer skills are great, starting with the simpler of the two. Maple World Goddess's Blessing just makes your Maple Warrior way stronger for a whole minute, as well as increases your damage. 2-minute cooldown. Unreliable Memory lets you use an extra cooldown skill of your choosing, from 3rd or 4th job, ignoring said skill's own cost and cooldown. You choose what skill you want through this other skill, Mind Delve, which brings up a menu of 6 skills to choose from, including Infinity. Press the skill once you've made your choice, and there you have it, another use of one of your bigger skills. The cooldown for Unreliable Memory is a bit convoluted, with it being based on the level of the skill you chose to cast, and set probability rates. I don't want to get too deep into it, but it's marginally important. Here's the table the IL Google Doc provides of its breakdown if you were curious though. IL really isn't difficult or that in-depth. I know. You won't believe me unless I show you how. So it's time to make her easy. So Infinity is one of your most important skills. Unreliable Memory in that regard is too, because out of these 6 spells to choose from in Mind Delve, the only one you'd ever want to consider really is Infinity. When used properly, with enough buff duration, you can cycle both skills back and forth pretty much, well, infinitely. That's a really nice extra chunk of final damage up most of the time. It does help a lot while grinding, but this is a must for bossing, so keep that up for as long as you possibly can. Here's a fun and fairly useful mechanic I just learned all mages with a teleport can do in Maple. Teleporting while ducking. Hold down the down key, press either the attack key, or Chain Lightning in IL's case. Then while still holding down, teleport either left or right during the poke animation. There's a bunch of later on bosses like Saren and Black Mage that have mechanics that you can duck under to avoid, as well as a few early on bosses like Damien. Thanks IL Discord for including this in your guide. I'm not sure how I never knew about this. I'll make a quick mention of Frozen Orb having a very weird niche bug. This applies to Phantoms too if they steal Frozen Orb, by the way. If your computer's uptime totals over roughly about a month in length, Frozen Orb will suddenly just stop doing damage entirely. The only way to fix this is to restart your computer, and this has been an odd little bug for around a decade or longer. Moving on. For grinding, yeah, you can probably guess by now Chain Lightning is going to clear a good chunk of the map for you. Don't forget about your summons too though. Elquines to hit around you occasionally, and Thunder Sphere, more specifically in its placedown mode, on a side of the map you're not clearing out with Chain Lightning as easily once you start one-shotting with it. The tried and true Urda Fountain and Will skill, if you have those, are also good long-distance summons that clean up around you too. While it's largely not necessary, you can also toss out any or all of your 5th job skills too, either when you go to loot the map, or whenever you just feel like using them for whatever reason. Farming with Frozen Orb is a decent option too, mainly for more condensed, smaller maps, and once you're one-shotting with that. At 6th job, Soul Janus is always a mainstay for every class, both for the option of either Dawn Orbs acting as more placedown summons every minute, or Dusk to clear the area out around you. For bossing, let's start off by setting up your sequence skills. Okay, IL doesn't have much to sequence. Regardless, using the sequence button still saves a bit of time from having to click all of these when you start gearing up to burst. It casts them all faster than you can manually click them. Just toss on everything that isn't your infinity pretty much. End it off with AB's terms and conditions to get the most out of your burst, and that's it. Don't forget that your bind, Freezing Breath, is one of the longest binds in the game, at 13 seconds long. The iframe aspect of it can be nice too, but you'll mainly want to use it whenever you or your party allows you to bind, both for its long duration and for its defense reducing debuff. 30% and 15% respectively are pretty nice. Elemental Adaptation is a nice protective spell, especially given the fact it never expires until it blocks a status condition. More specifically, it's the more common basic ones it blocks. Any that are unique to a boss like stacks or their specific curses and such aren't blocked. So seals, seduces, poisons, basic stuns, etc., those are all fair game and fine to be safe from, but anything on this list from Grandis Library are not. To maximize your damage to a boss, you'll want to have free stacks going near constantly as much as possible, thanks to how it works with the damage buff from Freezing Crush and Frost Clutch. Attacking frost-stacked enemies with lightning skills gives 12% damage per frost stack, giving a total of 60% extra damage. That's pretty big. While things like Elkwines and Spirit of Snow are good at maintaining decently high frost stacks, the main source of your stacks will come from Frozen Orb, and Absolute Zero Aura / Vortex if you place it down. Thunder Sphere supplies a nice chunk of your overall damage too, whether it's placed down or following you around. In bossing, there's not much reason why you wouldn't want it following you around at all times, unless the boss is stationary and you have to run for safety. In party play, Meditation is a nice party buff for any classes that use magic attack, same with Absolute Zero's extra defenses. Ending off this section, I'll state it one more time. Don't forget to cycle around Infinity and Unreliable Memories version of Infinity. Very important. Since IL is a typical standard mage type class, they get a choice between using a staff or a wand. If you're not sure which to pick, this might help. Staff. There are 0 downsides to picking a staff, as it gives more flat magic attack over every other wand equivalent. Wand gets one very minimal bonus, which is 5% extra crit rate. Nowadays, that's pretty worthless, seeing as you can hit the crit rate cap extremely comfortably. Wand and staff attack speeds do differ, but this doesn't affect mages in any way, since they go off the separate hidden stat of spell speed, even if things like speed infusion and attack speed +1 in their ability boost their spell speed. But anyways, the only reason you'd ever want to consider wand over staff for would purely be for visual, aesthetic purposes. That is it. Moving on, what secondary does IL want? So they get a choice between using the typical secondary every other class gets, or also a Mage Shield. You'll want the Mage Shield, since you can Star Force that for even more stats than any secondary could otherwise supply to you. In reg servers, you can even scroll said shield for more stats. The best in slot shield as of making this video for all mage classes that can use one is the Deimos Sage Shield, which you get through crafting and can go up to 20 stars. The recipe to craft the shield drops either from normal mode Cygnus or any of these mobs in Future Irv. You won't have to worry about this early on, but if you start investing more into your IL, you'll definitely want to get a good shield up and going. Link skills are, I can't even currently say they're the same as every other class anymore. We just got 2 huge meta-shifting ones, one of which is great for IL. Well, anyways, let's get the grinding ones set up out of the way. That's easy enough to explain. Mercedes, Aran, and Evan for extra flat XP, combo orb XP, and increased rune duration respectively. Lara's Link for more normal enemy damage if you wanted to better secure one-shotting mobs, and then the rest of the gaps can be filled in with whatever other links you have and or want to use. Some layout like this. Now let's get into the ever-changing landscape of bossing. Obviously, you'll want pretty much anything that increases boss damage, and AB's Link terms and conditions for your burst window. Quick aside, yes, AB's Link skill is increased with buff duration as well. For the rest of the slots, you could get any mix of IED, stacking damage buff via Ark's Soulless, the Explorer Thief stacking Link skill for debuffed enemy damage, and of course the other stacking Explorer Mage links to get the most out of Empirical Knowledge, which isn't hogging up a slot anyways. Sia also just came out very recently, as of this update when making this video, and her link, Tree of Stars, is fantastic for mage classes, increasing crit damage, and more importantly, buff duration. Guess what you wanna get? Mojuan's Link is great for bossing too, kinda acting like a pseudo Soulless, but with more of a focus on boss damage. Anyways, you got a lot of choices, but this is what I personally recommend for a layout. You don't have to strictly adhere to this, use what you feels works best for you. Like using Resistance Link for 8 seconds of invincibility every time you revive in a boss fight. Inner ability is similar to a lot of other mages in Maple. Right off the bat, with the bossing setup, there's no getting around this. First line, attack speed +1. Get it, it's the best in slot option for IL, and without it, you can't even reach the attack speed cap by yourself. Second and third lines, you'll definitely also want buff duration, both for a super duper long infinity uptime, but also for increasing AB Link's duration. To a lesser extent, also a bunch of your other buffs, including Thunder Sphere and its place down variant. For a third line, you can play around and or settle between the choices of boss damage, abnormal status damage, or just flat magic attack. For grinding, yeah, the typical spread of drop, meso, and normal monster damage. If you felt bold enough, you could get a mobs hit +1 line too, for more chain lightning, chaining. So here's how Trinodes go for Ice Lightning Mage. There's not really a bossing and grinding setup for either of these, but this first one will without a doubt be giving you the most damage right off the bat, so let's call this one the bossing Trinode. Chain Lightning, Lightning Orb, and Thunder Sphere. Chain Lightning being your main spammable attack, Lightning Orb is just a great burst attack every minute, and Thunder Sphere is just another fairly hefty damaging skill, especially with its extra damage to normal monsters. For a second Trinode, both for filling in the gaps, and to prepare for 6-job mastery upgrades, you'll want Blizzard, Frozen Orb, and Elquines. Blizzard mainly for its passive, Icicle coming down on one enemy passive, Frozen Orb for its decent tick damage every 5 or so seconds, and Elquines because it's a summon that'll be smacking enemies often. As mentioned, for your 6th job masteries, you get various upgrades to all 6 of these skills, so these Trinodes are future-proofed for when our 3rd and 4th masteries roll around. One even comes with a new skill for us to play around with, Cryo Shock, which is a passive that procs with your free stacks. For Burst/BA, obviously make sure all your toggles and non-cooldown buffs are up and active, along with any summons like Elquines and Thunder Sphere. Get Infinity up and active too, if that's not constantly on for you just yet. Absolute Zero Aura is something to consider too, but optional because it'd mainly just be for the defense and freeze stacks, which are very useful. Next, you'll want to start setting up your other various buffs and summons with cooldown, such as Spirit of Snow, Epic Adventure, Maple World Goddess's Blessing, and AB Link. If you're on binding duties in a party, around here is where you'd pop your class bind, Freezing Breath. From here, simply cast anything else that remains. Jupiter Thunder, Frozen Orb, Bolt Barrage, Will or Saren skills if you have those, and end all that off with holding down Lightning Orb, then spamming Chain Lightning and Frozen Orb off cooldown. There's not much else to shorten down, that's it really. At 6th job, when you get your Origin, you'll want to use that after you've used all your burst, but right before you start using your spammable skills, Frozen Orb and Chain Lightning. Your off burst, which is up about every minute, consists of popping AB Link, Ice Age, Frozen Orb, holding down Lightning Orb, and then back to spamming the spammy skills. Ice Lightning is one of the simpler classes to burst with, and it's even a bit easier now with the sequence button. Just pop that and whatever else you click for your main or off burst. I like that IL has largely remained the same throughout the years of Explorer reworks. Chain Lightning is still a key staple everyone knows the class for, and everything else has just been stabilizing everything else they lacked or weren't as good at. I only ever saw them as a grinding focused class prior to making this guide, but I've come to find out their bossing is pretty capable and solid too. Thanks to the IL Discord / Explorer Mage Discord for having an incredibly handy, easy to understand, useful guide for this class, and thank you for watching my guide. If there's other classes you want me to go over in the future, let me know down in the comments. If you just like MapleStory related videos and want more from me whenever I make them, consider subscribing to the channel. It was a little shocking and cool to see that so many people wanted an IL guide, and I enjoyed learning more about them. There's a couple newer classes I should get around to making guides for, and I'll probably do them next, unless y'all convince me to cover some other class. That's all.